Queen's style is recognised across the globe, and she has become something of a fashion icon.
A new exhibition at Buckingham Palace now showcasing Queen Elizabeth II's iconic style, offering a rare glimpse.
Who or what was behind the late Queen becoming a fashion icon?
By seeing the Queen's clothing, it will stir memories and reminiscences in our visitors, of course, for such a long life of duty.
Organised by the Royal Collection Trust, exhibition brings together clothing, jewellery, personal design material.
I'm thrilled that we've taken this trip through history together with these amazing clothes.
She wouldn't say she didn't like something, but you could instinctively tell if she thought there was something that didn't quite work.
But there are many other pieces which chart her life in fashion and her relationship with British fashion and British fashion design throughout her life.
She wants her dresses to speak to the nation, and so she likes to have, and sometimes it's required.
But Her Majesty's true signature? Those matching hats and leather handbags.
And there are other things she would tweak, so the Lana handbag would normally come with a suede lining. She liked her in silk. They would have a little kind of coin purse and lipstick.
I think the feeling of being around these clothes is that there's just history here right in front of us.
For the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's wedding, she wore the Richmond brooch that had been given to her grandmother as a wedding gift.
The King and Queen visited the Queen Elizabeth II, her Life in Style exhibition, the largest and most comprehensive presentation of the late Queen's fashion.
The breadth of the material, there's over 4,000 pieces, and it's her whole lifetime condensed into 4,000 pieces.
There's an exhibition open right now at Buckingham Palace, and it's quietly saying something that no press release, no royal spokesperson, and no carefully worded statement ever could. Rebecca English, the Daily Mail's royal editor, one of the most connected voices covering the British monarchy for over 2 decades, has been talking about it, dissecting it, pulling apart what it means not just as a cultural moment, but as a statement about what the royal family was, what it is, and what it lost somewhere along the way. And the more you look at what this exhibition actually contains, the more one question keeps surfacing in royal circles, in media commentary, in the online spaces where people who follow this story closely tend to gather. Did Meghan Markle ever actually understand what being a royal required? Not the privileges, not the platform, not the global attention, the discipline. If you want more deep dives like this, make sure to subscribe to Royal Archives. The exhibition is called Queen Elizabeth II, Her Life in Style. It opened on April 10th, 2026, at the King's Gallery inside Buckingham Palace. Over 300 items on display. Gowns worn for coronations and state banquets, riding jackets from Balmoral, silk headscarves, handwritten correspondence between the Queen and her designers. Never-before-seen sketches showing how every public appearance was constructed from the ground up, clothing worn across every single decade of Elizabeth's life, from a silver lame bridesmaid dress she wore at age 8 in 1934, to the quiet, perfectly chosen ensembles of her final years. It is the largest exhibition of the late Queen's fashion ever staged, anywhere, by anyone. But Rebecca English isn't talking about it because it's beautiful. She's talking about it because it's revealing, not just as a costume display, as a document, a record of something Queen Elizabeth II understood at a level that most people around her in those final years never fully grasped. That's where this story starts to get interesting. Because here's what the exhibition is really about, and curator Caroline de Guiteau said it plainly. The Queen had a hands-on role in understanding of the soft power behind her clothing. Every choice was deliberate. Every color, every silhouette, every commission, chosen with a purpose that had nothing to do with personal expression and everything to do with service, symbolism, and the weight of wearing a crown for 70 years. Restraint. That word keeps coming up. One British designer described Elizabeth's wardrobe as a masterclass, in silhouette, in repetition, in symbolism, and above all, in restraint. In knowing the clothes were never about the woman wearing them, They were about what she represented. 300 items, 7 decades of public life. Not once did the wardrobe pull focus from the role. That's where things stop making sense, when you hold that standard up against what happened between 2018 and 2020. When Meghan Markle joined the royal family, the fashion world paid attention. That's undeniable. She brought sharper, more modern visibility, fluent in the language of celebrity culture, and the kind of coverage that drives magazine covers and social media engagement. The Givenchy wedding gown, the Australia tour outfits that sent labels into overnight sellouts, the global earned media value that brands spend millions trying to manufacture. Observers were impressed. The public was watching. And for a brief window, there was genuine enthusiasm about what Meghan's presence might mean for the monarchy's reach. But across royal circles, and Rebecca English has reported on this dynamic extensively, something else was being registered. Quietly, carefully. The clothes were drawing attention to Meghan, not to the monarchy, not to the institution, not to the cause or the country or the occasion, to her. Whether that was intentional, or a question online discussions have been circling for years, the effect was identical either way. The soft power equation the Queen had spent a lifetime calibrating was running in reverse. The Queen had spent decades building a visual language that was, at its heart, selfless. Bright, solid colors so she could be spotted in a crowd, not to stand out, but to be found. British designers worn with intention to support an industry and signal loyalty. Outfits repeated years apart because repetition wasn't laziness, it was a statement. She was not performing for a fashion audience, she was showing up again and again in service of something larger than herself. Rebecca English described the exhibition as a window into exactly that philosophy. A philosophy that, according to those who followed this story closely, became a quiet fault line inside the palace long before anything was said publicly. Because the tension was never about hemlines or hat choices. It was about what the clothes were communicating and who they were communicating for. That distinction, small as it sounds, turned out to matter enormously. Was Meghan's approach a misunderstanding or something more deliberate? Some online discussions have suggested it was a clash of cultures in American actress, shaped by an industry where personal brand is everything, navigating an institution built on the precise opposite principle. The argument goes she couldn't have known, that no one properly explained it. Others have pointed further, arguing the fashion choices were part of a consistent pattern that prioritized the individual over the institution at every turn. What's harder to dismiss is the timeline. In October 2018, the Australia tour, Meghan was at the peak of her royal visibility. The clothes were global news. But behind the scenes, accounts that have since emerged paint a picture of an institution already beginning to strain. Questions being raised, concerns quietly registered. By January 2020, the exit was announced. By spring, they had stepped back entirely. By summer, California, and within months, with a speed that surprised almost no one watching closely, the Netflix deal was signed, the memoir was in progress, and the Montecito operation was fully underway. Critics were quick to note that the transition happened with remarkable ease, as though the infrastructure had been waiting long before the announcement was made. Something about that timeline doesn't quite add up, if the story was really about escaping the pressures of royal life. Because the life that followed was not quieter. It was differently branded. That's where the exhibition hits differently. Standing in the King's Gallery right now, looking at 300 items worn by a woman who never once used her wardrobe to promote herself, who wore the same coat twice without a second thought, who chose colors for visibility rather than flattery, a contrast comes into focus that commentary has struggled to articulate as cleanly. The Queen understood something she had absorbed long before she had language for it. The role was not an opportunity. It was a responsibility. And everything, the clothes, the gestures, the decades of showing up wearing exactly the right thing, existed entirely in service of that responsibility. Rebecca English described what the exhibition reveals as the story of a lifetime of thoughtful style choices, not fashionable. Not trend-setting. Thoughtful. That word carries weight, because thoughtful implies awareness of consequence. What a choice communicates, who it serves, what it builds over time. Across 7 decades, Elizabeth made those choices with such consistency that the discipline itself became invisible. The restraint was so complete it disappeared into the background. Meghan Markle's fashion choices never disappeared into the background. The chatter that circulated, unconfirmed but persistent, was that senior figures within the institution felt the Sussex approach was pulling the spotlight in a direction the monarchy couldn't sustain. That the brand being broadcast was one of celebrity, not service. And there is a reason that distinction matters to an institution like the British monarchy. Its relevance depends entirely on the public believing those inside it have subordinated themselves to something larger. The moment it looks like the institution is serving the individuals rather than the reverse, something fundamental breaks. Queen Elizabeth II spent 96 years making sure it never broke on her watch. The exhibition is the record of how she did it. And here's what's raising eyebrows now, years after the exit, after the documentary and the memoir and all the rest. This exhibition opens, and it answers, without naming anyone, without a single pointed remark, the question that has been quietly haunting the Sussex story since the beginning. What does royal fashion actually mean? It means nothing about you. That is the answer. Everything about where you are, who you're representing, what the moment demands. 300 items, 0 personal brand partnerships, 0 magazine negotiations conducted from inside the institution. Just a woman who understood the crown was always heavier than the clothes. Rebecca English has spent years documenting the gap between what the Sussex chapter claimed to be and what it appeared to be from inside royal circles. This exhibition, open through October 18th, 2026, may be the most quietly devastating rebuttal the institution could have constructed. It didn't mention Meghan Markle, not once. It didn't need to. It opened its doors, hung 300 pieces of a life lived in service, and let the contrast speak. Across social media, the same observation keeps surfacing, that what's on display isn't just fashion history, it's a standard. And measured against that standard, the Sussex years look less like a clash of personalities and more like a fundamental failure to understand what the job actually was. The exhibition runs through October. Rebecca English continues to cover this family with the access and frankness she's built over decades. And the questions this display raises, about image, about service, about what it means to wear the weight of an institution rather than use it, those questions aren't going away. Because somewhere in Montecito, the brand building continues. The appearances are curated, the clothes chosen for maximum personal impact. And at Buckingham Palace, 300 items hang in silence, making the loudest argument anyone has made about this story in years. Some things don't need to be said, they just need to be shown. If this kind of royal deep dive is what you've been looking for, subscribe to Royal Archives. There is a great deal more to uncover. And the stories the palace doesn't tell out loud are very often the ones most worth hearing.